Welcome to the Mind Cut series. Today, we're diving deep into something fundamental to how you feel, both mentally and physically, your metabolic health.
And specifically, we're looking at its connection to the mitochondria, those tiny powerhouses inside our cells.
Exactly. You've shared some fascinating material that suggests a pretty revolutionary way to think about conditions like depression, anxiety, even neurodevelopmental stuff.
Right. The goal today is really to unpack all that, connect the dots, and pull out some insights people can actually use.
So let's start there. Why is this perspective, this focus on metabolism and mitochondria, gaining traction now? It feels like a shift.
It is a shift, and I think it starts by challenging some, let's say, overly simplistic views we've had about mental health.
Like the serotonin hypothesis for depression.
Exactly like that. Your sources pointed out, and it's true, that idea didn't exactly come from finding low serotonin in depressed people first. It was more serendipitous.
Serendipitous, how so?
Well, back in the 50s, they were treating tuberculosis patients with certain drugs, MAO inhibitors like iproniazid, and they noticed these patients' moods improved.
Ah, okay. So the drug affected serotonin and mood improved, leading to the hypothesis, not the other way around.
Precisely. The observation came first, the hypothesis followed. And it's important to remember, many psychiatric drugs work by, tweaking neuromodulators, serotonin, dopamine, others.
Through things like reuptake inhibition or slowing breakdown.
Right, so they modulate the system. It's not usually about fixing one single imbalance. It suggests serotonin is part of the story, sure, but maybe not the whole story, or even the root cause.
Okay, that definitely clarifies things. It pushes us to look deeper, beyond just neurotransmitters. So how do mitochondria fit in? We usually just think energy.
And that's where it gets really interesting. Yes, ADP production energy is critical. Life stops in minutes without it.
Yeah. Pretty fundamental.
But they do so much more. Mitochondria are involved in signaling within the cell calcium regulation.
Calcium, like for nerve signals.
Exactly. Nerve signaling, muscle contraction. They also manage reactive oxygen species, ROS.
ROS, those are the damaging free radicals, right?
Well, yes and no. Too much is bad, sure. But at the right levels, ROS act as crucial signaling molecules. Little sparks, you could say. They even influence epigenetics.
Wow, epigenetics. How our environment affects gene expression. Mitochondria are involved there too.
They are, and they play a huge role in our stress response, influencing cortisol production, helping cells communicate under stress.
So they're not just power plants, they're like communication hubs and stress managers.
You got it. And fundamentally, they're key for survival, reproduction, defense, adaptation. Their health impacts everything.
Okay, this paints a much bigger picture. So thinking about metabolic health as this umbrella term.
Exactly. Mitochondrial health is a core pillar of overall metabolic health, and that connects mental and physical well-being directly.
Which means things like exercise, diet, sleep, substance use, they all directly hit mitochondrial function.
Precisely. Which brings us to lifestyle medicine.
Right, you mentioned the 6 pillars. Let's quickly list those as actionable areas.
Okay. First, diet and nutrition complex, but vital. Whole foods are key.
Got it. Diet.
Second, exercise or movement. Think intermittent stress, like bursts of activity, then recovery.
Exercise with recovery.
Third, sleep. Quality and quantity matter. Even room temperature affects metabolic processes during sleep.
Sleep. Crucial.
Fourth, managing substance use. Reducing or eliminating things harmful to mitochondria.
Substance use, right.
Fifth, stress reduction. Mindfulness, meditation, yoga, things like that.
Stress management. Makes sense.
And sixth, relationships and purpose. These social emotional factors actually impact our physiology too.
Relationships and purpose. Wow. Okay. These pillars seem like common sense health advice, but framing it through mitochondria really highlights why they matter.
It gives it a biological mechanism, doesn't it?
It really does. Let's dig into a couple of these.
Yeah.
Substance use, how do things like stimulants, alcohol, nicotine mess with mitochondria?
Okay, stimulants like dopamine itself or ADHD meds, they can actually ramp up brain metabolism, boost mitochondrial activity.
So potentially helpful at the right dose.
Potentially in therapeutic contexts. But high doses, that can overtax and damage the mitochondria. It's a balance.
Right. And alcohol.
Alcohol is pretty clearly bad news for mitochondria, especially in the liver. The breakdown product, acetaldehyde, is directly toxic.
That toxicity is a key part of liver damage then.
A very key part. And the brain, being so energy hungry, is also really sensitive to alcohol's effects on mitochondria.
Okay, stark warning there. What about nicotine? sometimes hear about cognitive effects.
Interesting one. Low doses might actually stimulate mitochondria a bit, could explain some short-term focus effects.
But high doses.
High doses likely turn toxic, can increase that damaging ROS production,
Yeah.
and the quick metabolic boost might even contribute to its addictiveness. The brain gets used to it.
So again, moderation at best, avoidance probably better for mitochondrial health.
That seems to be the safest bet, yes.
Okay, let's pivot to diet. You said it's complex but crucial. You highlighted maternal nutrition during pregnancy. How big of an impact does that have?
It's massive and long-lasting. What the mother eats during pregnancy doesn't just affect the baby's risk for obesity or diabetes later.
But also mental health.
Yes. Significantly increased risk for things like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, even antisocial personality disorder down the line. The fetal mitochondria are developing and very sensitive.
Wow. So prenatal nutrition is foundational for brain health too. What's the practical advice there?
It's not about perfection, but focusing on nutrient-dense whole foods, ensuring enough essential vitamins, minerals. It sets the stage for lifelong health.
Okay. Now, what about the modern diet? Ultra-processed foods, we know they're linked to poor health, but is it just the calories?
Good question. The calories are definitely part of it. People often eat way more calories, like 500 extra a day when their diet is high in these foods.
Yeah.
They're designed to be hypopalatable.
So they override our fullness signals.
Seems like it. But it's likely more than just calories. They're often stripped of vital nutrients mitochondria need, and then there are the additives.
Additives, like food dyes, preservatives. Is there solid proof they harm mitochondria?
Direct proof for specific additives is tricky. A lot slips through under the generally regarded as safe or GRAS status, often without rigorous testing. Funding for that kind of research is scarce.
So we don't have smoking gun evidence for each chemical,
But the epidemiological data is strong. High consumption of the whole package of ultra-processed foods consistently links to worse physical and mental health outcomes. Cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, mortality, depression, anxiety. The links are there.
it suggests the overall effect is harmful, even if we can't pinpoint every single mechanism yet.
Exactly. The practical takeaway is clear. Minimize these foods, focus on whole, minimally processed options, read labels, cook more at home.
Seems like a public health challenge, almost like tobacco control. You mentioned taxes or ad bans as possibilities.
Parallels have been drawn, yes, whether it's taxes, ad restrictions, or maybe incentivizing healthier choices, or just building public awareness and maybe even opposition to these food practices. It's complex.
For sure. Okay, shifting dietary strategies. The ketogenic diet, you've researched this, originally for epilepsy, right?
Yes, very effective for treatment-resistant epilepsy. Strong evidence there.
And potential for mental health.
Some emerging evidence, yes. Early days, but case reports and small studies suggest potential benefits for some people with treatment-resistant schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Some even achieve remission.
How might it work? Changing brain fuel.
That's the leading theory. Switching the brain from primarily using glucose to using ketones might be neuroprotective, might help mitochondrial function. Animal studies also hint at changes in the gut microbiome influencing brain mitochondria.
Fascinating. But you'd stress this needs medical supervision.
Absolutely. It's a serious medical intervention, not a casual diet. Needs careful planning for nutritional adequacy and monitoring.
Right. What about less extreme approaches? Intermittent fasting or fasting mimicking diets?
Fasting has a long history, culturally. Scientifically, research is growing. Walter Longo's fasting mimicking diet, it's a specific low-calorie plant-based protocol, shows some promise in early studies for metabolic health markers.
And regular intermittent fasting, like skipping breakfast or having an eating window.
Yeah, things like an 8-hour eating window, say 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., There's some data suggesting benefits like improved insulin sensitivity, maybe triggering cellular cleanup processes that help mitochondria.
So putting the cells under a bit of controlled stress might be beneficial.
That's the idea. Intermittent stress, followed by recovery and nutrients, might boost resilience and optimize function over time. It's more accessible for many to try, maybe starting with a 10 or 12-hour eating window. But listen to your body. Check with a doctor if you have health issues.
Good advice. Okay, let's talk specific nutrients. Creatine, known for muscle building. How does it link to mitochondria?
Creatine is fundamental to energy transport. It's like a shuttle, moving high-energy phosphates from the mitochondria, where ATP is made, to where energy is needed, including the brain.
Our bodies make it, and we get it from meat.
Correct, if you have the right building blocks. And yes, animal foods are a source.
Any evidence for brain benefits?
Growing evidence, yes. Potential for supporting cognition, maybe mood. It aligns with improving energy metabolism in the brain. Still needs more research before it's a standard recommendation, but it looks promising and generally safe for most, worth discussing with a doctor.
Interesting. Okay, what about methylene blue? Sounds like something for fish tanks.
Huh! It has been used for that, yes. It has a long history. In mitochondria, it can act as an electron carrier, basically helping the electron transport chain work better, especially if it's dysfunctional. This can boost ATP production and reduce harmful ROS.
So it helps struggling mitochondria. Any human evidence?
Some pilot trials suggest benefits in depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, even Alzheimer's. But these are small studies. And there are risks. Serotonin syndrome is a big one if mixed with certain antidepressants.
Right. Need to be careful with interactions.
Definitely. Need reputable sources, careful dosing. It might also help build new mitochondria and have anti-inflammatory effects. But still, more research needed.
Okay, intriguing, but proceed with caution. Another one gaining buzz is urolithin A. What's that about?
Urolithin A is interesting. Our gut bacteria make it from compounds in things like pomegranates. It seems to promote mitophagy, the cleanup of damaged mitochondria.
Cleaning up the old ones.
Exactly. A company called Timeline has done research showing potential benefits for muscle function, likely through mitochondrial effects. It might offer an edge, but again, it's not a magic pill. Lifestyle first. Eating polyphenol-rich foods is a good start.
Foundational lifestyle always seems key. Let's cover essential vitamins B12 and folate. How crucial are they for mitochondria?
Absolutely critical. They're needed for reactions both inside and outside mitochondria that are essential for things like DNA synthesis and repair, keeping mitochondria healthy. Deficiencies are strongly linked to neuropsychiatric problems.
B12 deficiency common in vegans, vegetarians.
Yes, and older adults, people on metformin or acid blockers. Symptoms can range from depression and anxiety to psychosis, even permanent nerve damage if untreated. Regular checks are important for those at risk.
And folate.
Also vital, especially for brain development and mood regulation, essential for women of childbearing age.
Okay, so basic B vitamins are non-negotiable for mitochondrial and brain health. What about iron? You mentioned deficiency is common in young women.
Extremely common. Estimates suggest maybe 40% of young women aged 12-21 in the U.S. might be deficient. Iron is critical for oxygen transport to the brain via hemoglobin, but also for enzymes involved in making neurotransmitters and in mitochondrial energy production itself.
So deficiency affects brain energy and chemistry.
Absolutely. Can lead to fatigue, cognitive issues, and it's linked to higher rates of anxiety and depression, particularly noticeable in girls after puberty starts. Diet and supplementation, if needed, are really important here.
It's striking how these nutrient basics tie back to mitochondria and mental state. Okay, let's tackle a complex topic. Vaccines, inflammation, neurodevelopment. We know infections in pregnancy can be risky. How do vaccines fit in?
Right. Significant inflammation from infections like flu or rubella during pregnancy is linked to higher neurodevelopmental disorder risk in offspring. Animal models support this.
And vaccines cause inflammation. That's how they work, right?
They do. They trigger an immune response, including inflammation, usually mild and temporary. The intensity varies. Now, could a very strong, hyper-exaggerated inflammatory response in a uniquely vulnerable person, say someone with an underlying mitochondrial issue, potentially impact neurodevelopment?
Theoretically possible in rare cases.
Theoretically, yes. There are isolated case reports, even a court ruling suggesting this link in one specific instance, but these are extremely rare and complex scenarios.
What does the large-scale evidence show about vaccines and autism, for example?
The overwhelming scientific consensus, based on numerous large, high-quality studies, is that there is no causal link between routine childhood vaccines and autism.
No link found.
No link found. Some studies even hint unvaccinated kids might have a slightly higher risk, though there can be confounding factors. And critically, the diseases vaccines prevent, like measles, do carry real risks of severe complications, including neurological ones that can definitely harm mitochondrial function and development.
So the risk-benefit calculation strongly favors vaccination.
Based on current science, overwhelmingly yes. The known risks of the diseases are far greater than the hypothetical, unsubstantiated risks of vaccines for the vast majority.
Practical advice might be to ensure good health, sleep, nutrition before vaccination.
That's always sensible. Optimize the immune system's baseline. And we absolutely need continued rigorous research controlling for more variables. It's also crucial to note maternal obesity and diabetes are major risk factors for autism, much stronger than, say, paternal age in some data.
Which brings us back to metabolic health being key for neurodevelopment.
Exactly. It's a powerful influence.
So looking ahead, how do we actually measure mitochondrial or metabolic health right now? Is there a good test?
Not really a single easy blood test for mitochondrial health yet. That's the challenge. But researchers are working hard on it.
What are they looking for?
Panels of biomarkers, maybe 5, maybe 20 different molecules in the blood that together give a signature of metabolic or mitochondrial dysfunction. Some groups are finding combinations that seem quite sensitive for conditions like severe depression, for instance.
So biomarker signatures might be the future.
Could be. The hope is to develop tools, maybe even for prospective parents, to assess their metabolic health and understand potential risks for their children, and then, crucially, have effective ways to intervene.
That would be a huge step.
Sure.
Requires more research funding, I imagine.
Definitely. A shift towards funding research into underlying causes like metabolic dysfunction, not just treating symptoms, is needed. And maybe even developing some kind of overall metabolic health score or metric, perhaps incentivized, could be powerful for public health.
A comprehensive way to track and encourage metabolic well-being. That's a compelling vision. Okay, this has been a truly deep dive. The connection between mitochondrial health, metabolic function, and our mental well-being feels like a major key.
It really reframes how we think about health, doesn't it? The science is complex, yes, but the core message is actually quite empowering.
How so?
Because so much of it comes down to daily choices. Diet, exercise, sleep, stress, relationships. These aren't just nice-to-haves. They are directly influencing these fundamental cellular processes.
So we have significant agency. It's not a magic bullet. No single supplement will fix everything.
Exactly. But this metabolic framework gives us a roadmap for taking proactive steps. Minimizing ultra-processed foods, ensuring nutrient adequacy, considering fasting protocols maybe, managing stress, moving our bodies.
These all support those tiny powerhouses. We hope this exploration sparked some aha moments and gave you practical insights. What stands out most to you from all this? Is there one change you might consider making?
It really is the start of a journey, understanding how to optimize mind and body from the inside out.
Absolutely. Consider digging into the resources we touched on, talk to your doctor about these ideas, and definitely stay curious about this evolving field. It feels like we're just scratching the surface.